cameras are rolling, so we're pretty much ready started. So Alex, Jason, welcome. Alex and I have known each other since Mathieu Martin days, and Noël Enfant days.
Yeah.
Jason, we've met through events in my previous jobs and stuff like that, and
Yep.
and we've continued to work together through our partnership with Traeger, which is really awesome. And so far, the content you produce has been equally informative, but also super entertaining, which is super awesome. So thanks a lot for that.
It's fun.
I think like the things that we're going through today, and by the time this runs, is pretty important. And I talked to you guys about it before we started. Like I want to make this as the least political as possible. We don't want to kind of throw that in there, but you guys are obviously Alex, you're involved with Flying Boats. Are you part owner now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So obviously for you, local is important.
Absolutely.
You obviously have a trajectory in the beer and entertainment industry that's brought you to where you're at today. Jason, you've been involved from the very early stages of seeing these local restaurants kind of evolve, and the culture around food and drinks and the whole social aspect. You've been very much a kind of a spokesperson around here, right?
Yeah.
Like I've seen you on the downtown Moncton stuff.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
Why does it matter to support local or to be involved with that?
For me, I think anywhere from New Brunswick, because I've traveled the whole province, trying to promote local, and what I notice is, as New Brunswickers or anybody from Moncton, is we're so humble.
Yeah.
Like Alex will not brag about his beer at all, never. That it's delicious, it's amazing, and that's where someone like me comes and says, "No, your beer is friggin' delicious," and I'm going to tell everybody about it. So that to me is what I wanted to do, is take that time to go and find these little hidden gems, these beers, these spots across the province or in Moncton, and just like shout from the rooftops, come check these guys out.
Yeah.
They're a little family-owned business. They're making stuff in their kitchen in the back, and it's delicious. Or they're making amazing beers. So to me, that's like the best reward.
Right.
It's amazing.
And how did you stumble upon, like, where does this journey begin in getting into the local side? Because before that you were with Molson, right?
Yeah. No, I worked with 6 years at Molson, 2 years in the cannabis space for Canopy
That's
Growth.
true. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good.
So I've worked for very large companies. Decided to start my own company, which eventually partnered up with some other local entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So Brad, Brian, and Colin, these three are also the owners of Pump House. So the companies are completely separate, just to make that clear. But we are, the shareholders are intertwined, per se.
Right.
But yeah, they're unreal partners to be with. They have a wealth of knowledge that's hard to buy, put it that way. And great to work with on a daily basis. So and then my company with their partnership, per se, ended up purchasing Flying Boats about exactly a year ago in 6 days. So,
cool. That's awesome.
So that was the intention, really. So the reason why, how can I say this? So I stopped drinking alcoholic beer, about 7 years ago.
Okay.
About the time where I left Molson.
Okay.
So with all of my hockey injuries, head injuries, doctors kind of recommended that what's triggering my symptoms of my concussion symptoms are mostly or rapidly affected by alcohol consumption. So I shifted to non-alcoholic beer and quickly realized that there was a gap in the market, and wanted to start to make my own, which voila.
And you guys are doing something super cool. I think I don't think everyone is doing.
No.
If anybody's doing what you're doing.
No.
It's incredible.
What are you doing differently?
Well, so
You got to try it.
when I was with Molson, big part of what my last year with Molson, a big piece that was super exciting was launching Heineken Zero. Okay. So that was super
cool.
cool.
That was in the last year that you were there.
So we launched Heineken Zero. There's actually a national contest where I won the contest. I actually spent a week in Amsterdam, in Netherlands, to visit the facility and kind of see how they made it, which was super eye-opening for me. And at that time, I was no longer, I was drinking maybe a few beers here and there, but very like,
down, right?
And that really pushed me to start liking non-alcoholic beer quite a bit. And then when I returned to school, I was doing my my master's and PhD, which I haven't completed, but that's kind of when I started my business. I started researching a lot about, the best ways to make non-alcoholic beer and how we could kind of bring that scale to the craft beer industry, and be able to offer a variety of different styles of non-alcoholic beer that, maintain that same high quality piece that is expected by consumers.
And that's the big thing, is like a lot of people, like, I think for me, just tasting that, like, IPAs have a particular taste that has the particular IPA taste. Outside of just drinking that one, I think the only one that I've really liked that has kind of hit the nail on it is like the Corona Zero. Like, I find that one's really good, but the other ones have always been like
lackluster.
They're just like, there's nothing to it, really. You're like, oh, I'm just kind of drinking.
It's beer-esque.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was the big thing. Like, if you look at how all of the big companies are making their non-alcoholic beers, well, the big thing is you want to ensure that it's a high quality, consistent, and safe product, right? And when it comes to beer, it is a fully fermented product, which, a fermented product means there's, yeast, which is living organisms, and it's, so to have a 0 alcohol beer or a 0.5, you want to make sure there's 0 and 0.5, and you want to, with beer, what makes a beer, gives it a little shelf life. You have hops in there that act as a preservative. You have alcohol that inhibits bacterial growth, and then you have pasteurization, which is the most common, like, safe hold. You want to make sure that with pasteurization, your beer's not going to randomly start fermenting again, or et cetera, right? So that's kind of the big barriers to market for most craft breweries, is like, well, you might not have the proper filtration equipment to make sure there's no yeast left in the product. You might not have a pasteurizer, and these are all very costly pieces to put together. And for smaller breweries, it's a lot of work. And if you also don't have the distribution for sales, so your tap room or your bar is only going to sell so much non-alcoholic beer, right? You have to kind of be able to.
Still need the alcohol one.
Well, it's not going to become 100% of your sales. It's going to be a small portion. Like, if you look at the Canadian market, you're looking at about 1.5% to 2% of total beverage alcohol sales are non-alcoholic. Well,
but I think it's growing, right? Like, I think that a lot of people, like, I was just on a trip recently, and a few of the guys that were there were like, picking the non-alcoholics. I think their trajectory is just like, hey, you know what? Like, I've been doing this for a little while, and I just, I'm waking up like not 125%, but every day it's just like, you're not sluggish, you're not feeling that bad, but the choices now are similar enough that you don't feel like you're like, there's almost that placebo effect where you feel you're still having that social experience. You're still having that taste that you're used to. I think a lot of people, especially with like smoking, is like, the difficult part of smoking is taking the break, going outside, being with the people you talk with outside. So if you can replicate that environment, just like the drinker that goes into the bar, has those chats and sits at the same place and all of that, but without the health risk, then you're getting ahead and growing that number to, maybe it's 1% today, but maybe in 20 years, 30 years from now, it might be 10%, 20%, 30%.
And they're only getting better, because like,
that's a thing,
delicious.
right?
And you mentioned Corona as a great one. There's a few other ones, but like, to have a craft beer that's non-alcoholic is phenomenal. It's amazing.
I agree.
And where the big, like, a lot of people like go back, 15, 20 years from now ago, and the people that were drinking non-alcoholic beers were typically like recovering alcoholics or pregnant women, right? That was kind of your category,
right?
Your market, right? And it's like, well, you fast forward to today, and all of a sudden, you know, you have a lot of variety, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, you go to pretty much any restaurant, bar across, you know, Canada, North America, they'll have some selection and it's, which is really, really good, because now where the growth is coming from, you know, if you look at all the data studies that are coming out with these numbers, it's the vast majority of people that are buying non-alcoholic beer are actually alcoholic or like alcohol drinkers.
Right.
Like
True,
80% of them.
That's
so it's
crazy.
like, it used to be the other way around, right? It's like 80% of people did not drink at all. Now it's like, no, a very small portion of the pie is actually non-drinkers.
Right.
The rest of the people are people that are including it more in their regime. So it's like it's more of moderation versus I don't drink or I do drink, which...
It doesn't have that label anymore of like, oh, well, like you were saying before, it's like the non-alcoholic drinker had an issue. Yeah. Like that's right. Or, oh, she's pregnant. Yeah. Right. Now it's like, oh, like, you know, oh, there's a great beer. Oh, no, I'm not drinking tonight, but, you know, I'm having non-alcoholic. Oh, great. Like, how does that one taste? Like, there's more of a...
It's totally acceptable.
It's not taboo, right?
Oh, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, right? I haven't had a beer in a month, and it's weird going out with friends. I thought it was going to be weird. Yeah. And I'm like, we go out golfing at the simulators, and we're having fun. Yeah. And I'll grab a non-alcoholic beer, and then they'll all talk. And most of them will just drink non-alcoholic beers. And, and it's cool. No one's like, oh, what's going on? What are you doing? Yeah. They're just taking a little break. Like,
that's it, right?
It's totally acceptable, and everyone's doing it. Like we went to a restaurant in Halifax, Tribute. They had cool. 3 or 4 different types of non-alcoholic beers when I was there. It was great. Kind of, you don't feel left out. Yeah. You're still hanging out with everyone. You're still having a beer.
And that's a big thing. Like I've done a few breaks as well, and extended ones, and not as extended years. That's kudos to you, man. That's and with almost like being forced into it, but also you know, it takes the willpower.
And you're in a spot where you have unlimited access.
You
just take the tap
every day.
And I love beer. I absolutely love beer. And you know, at Flying Boats, our team there has been making remarkable, liquids, and I try them, but to say that I'm drinking a full beer is like, no. I'll have maybe, once a month, have half a full beer. And do like any given day, we'll try like, just a 1 ounce, 2 ounce kind of sips, but that's about it. Cause for me, it's like the risk and reward of like drinking 2 beers will literally trigger migraines for about 3 days. So it's like, I can't afford to not be able to function for, with young kids and with a business. It's,
you owe it to them now too, right? Is to be there for them.
Always being present,
to miss out. And I'm sure a lot of people like even should probably consider their consumption and things that they're missing out when it is like a 6, 7, 8 beer affair, and then the next day you're like, you can't do a whole lot, right? Like, and I think that's where I think more and more people are starting to realize like for me, the biggest thing that was really difficult, and on a first extended break, it was like I pulled myself out of a lot of social situations, and that's not sustainable. Right. And then on the second time around, it's like, okay, well, then I started like, I on my personal page, I did like a full month of content where I was doing like non-alcoholic drinks, because I was like, I'm not trying to tell people to stop drinking. I'm just saying there's alternatives. Mm-hmm. I'm trying it out right now, and if you want to have fun with it, like I used to bartend, so here's some stuff you can do, right? But I found just the exercise of doing that and the there's bringing the kind of disconnecting myself from you need alcohol to have a good time. I find like that's what this is creating, a better positive relationships with not only like whether you're going back to alcohol or not, but just with social situations in general. It's like we don't need something to make it better. It's like the situation can be good just by your mindset and how you approach that situation, right?
So 1000%,
yeah,
absolutely.
So obviously you two have kind of a connection together. Have you worked together on some projects?
So we both business and personal. Actually, Jason catered my wife's bachelorette party.
Okay, all right.
I found out it took a little bit. I was in the fridges, and it was all full of Flying Boats beer. Like, wow, they got good taste.
Yeah.
And then found out later that
Yeah.
Cool.
And on a personal level, we don't have a kitchen at our bar, but occasionally, I'd say probably once a quarter type of thing.
Yeah, we try to do a pop-up.
A pop-up. And
So where does your, obviously you probably started off with a passion personally in cooking and stuff like that. How did it translate into, like, I feel like it's a business now. Like,
it is. It's insane. I gotta say, the last year and a half has been. Now I used to be like a lot of like caterings and pop-ups and all that kind of stuff. It was like 80% of my time. Yeah. Right now it's like 50% to 40%. Okay. And my rest of my time is spent doing social media stuff for local businesses. So it's been insane, and I feel so like lucky that I can do this stuff. Last summer I spent the entire summer. I went to 40 different restaurants in 60 days to try to find out who had the best lobster roll.
That's true.
And fried clams. Yeah. Like, so you look at Alex's story. So I get to do that every day. I go to a restaurant and there's a similar story as Alex. And it's so incredible to go into these places and listen to them and just talk about the passion they have with their business and their fried clams and their lobster roll. Like, Spinney's in St. Martin's was the one that I kind of deemed as the number one lobster roll.
Did everybody agree with you in the comments and stuff like that? Like,
I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was going to be. 'Cause especially fried clams, man. Like, people are like
die hard. It's like, no, fuck that. It's this place.
This is the one. Anyway, but no, they're pretty tame. But Spinney's, I'd heard great things. I get there and you hear the story of this woman that kind of dropped out of a corporate job. She wanted to run a restaurant. Her husband's a fisherman, so this is how fresh it is. The husband would go out, goes out at night, fishes the lobster, brings it in. At like 4 o'clock in the morning, there's 5 of them just shucking lobsters till about 11, and that's the lobster that goes in your fucking lobster roll. Like, it doesn't get any better than that.
You can't make it better than that.
And it's and she's just the nicest person, and she's the nicest people that are there that are working. And then so I do that. I do her post, her feature. Yeah. She sends me a note later saying that after my feature, she had to hire 2 more people because she got so busy.
That's so cool.
And then when I named them number 1, that day she sold 350 lobster rolls in that one day.
Oh my God.
Like, I get tingle. Like, that's totally unexpected. That's, like, that is like the bar.
And that's why we do all of this, right? Like, I've been involved with social media for so long, and you've been involved in it. And it's like, it's great being in the videos and all that, but like, the reason why we do it is because we know how powerful the messaging is behind it, and how we can communicate something awesome. And you've always used it as a tool to celebrate how awesome this area is, right?
Exactly.
And success, right?
It's nuts. It's like, so that was couldn't have been any better than, like, I was thinking, okay, we're gonna do okay. I think I reached close to 2 million people over the 60 days. Yeah. And I was getting DMs from people from the US, from Ontario, Quebec, going, hey, we're following along. We're coming to New Brunswick now because of you, and we want to try all these. I know. I'm like, what? What's going on? Like, I thought I'd maybe get like 40 likes on a post. Me eating lobster rolls. Like, I'm gonna get a summer where I eat lobster rolls. Like, no, it turned into this huge thing that I was like.
It's funny though, because every time that I go, like last year I went on a solo snowboarding trip, and I find every time that I'm on a chairlift, like over the past 2-3 years that I've gone, and you say where you're from, they always say something about seafood. Yeah. Like, oh, you're from New Brunswick. Oh yeah, I was down there once. We were up in Caracat, and we had the best seafood up there. Amazing. And so it's like, when you're talking about like lobster roll, that we're thinking, oh yeah, we'll get 40, 50 likes or whatever. And then we forget about how everybody sees us as like, they eat lobster, and it's like, it's coming from, like, it got exported to China, then comes back from China, comes back to the keg, and then it's like, by that time it's pretty crappy.
Yeah. And my whole thing has been, my passion is getting people to look at New Brunswick as a destination to come and visit, and not be the drive-through province. I hate when people say that. It drives me insane. Yeah. We have some of the nicest beaches. We have some of the nicest spots anywhere compared to Ontario, to Nova Scotia and PEI. Yeah. And we're still looked at as that, well, it's just Drive right
go
through.
right through.
Right through. It's a,
Yeah.
Even I did this post because Ian Hannah-Mansing from CBC at the time
Okay.
said this. He did a feature on the Lobster Festival in Shediac, and he said at the end, he says, "Oh, it's a great feature." He said, "If you're ever driving through New Brunswick to go to Nova Scotia or PEI, stop here." I'm like, driving through? No, you should be saying you need to come
right here
to New Brunswick. And Ian's from friggin' Sackville too. I'm like, come on, Ian.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a sore thing for Shediac. Maybe he did. Yeah. So, what in your opinion, like, or how did you evaluate your lobster rolls? Like, what was like? Were you looking for specific things? Was it more like a personal preference? Like, what makes the perfect lobster roll for you?
Personal. I mean, there's the story. There's the people that are there. That's like a part. The bun is a big part.
Yeah.
Bun is a big feature. You got to have a good bun.
Yeah.
Like Skipper Jack's has a bun that they get made in a bakery in Riverview.
Okay.
It's like a cloud.
Right.
So you got to have a good bun.
Yeah.
I don't like celery in my lobster roll.
Yeah, that's a weird one, eh? Yeah. Do you like the celery in it?
I don't mind it.
Oh, okay.
It's like pineapple on pizza, right?
Yeah,
No,
pineapple on
it's not
pizza.
even-
Listen,
not even close to the same.
Oh, okay, there we go. There we go. Debate in the comments here.
But yeah, like a crunch in there is good. A good amount of lobster is important, and the price point is always because I went
you
the price.
evaluated with the price too,
Yeah,
right?
so there's some like in Bucktusha, you get 2 lobster rolls for $17, or you can go to Alma and get 1 lobster roll for $32.
Right.
So like,
right. Yeah, you got to equate that to it. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The story does play a part too. I agree on that. It's like, if you like that lady that has it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Were there other like kind of crazy stories that you heard along the way that were?
That one, no, but I mean, lately I just did the downtown or the destination Moncton. I was doing like my hidden gem stuff for Moncton.
Oh, okay.
And I just did one on St. George Street. It's called Why Not BU Cafe, which I'd never been.
Okay, yeah.
I've heard a lot of people saying it's amazing. It's like a Korean restaurant, but they do like brunches.
I've been to the brunch. It's pretty
It's
sick.
insane.
Yeah.
So I get in there. I do my little thing. I do my post. The owner was kind of. Sometimes they look at me like, "What are you doing?" I got my little device and I'm doing stuff. They don't know what to expect.
Right.
And then I do my post, and then I tag them, and they go, "Oh, that's you. That's what you're doing, and this is who you are." And in Flux, they get a ton of like follows and all this stuff. And she sent me a note saying like, "Thank you. This was amazing." Then I had a friend that went on Saturday, tried to get into this cafe,
and
there's a lineup to go in. And I'm like, "Holy, that's."
Good for you, man.
No, it's
that's
not.
awesome.
It's like,
but it's good because I think like, and the reason why I'm saying good for you is like, I don't think people understand how rewarding it is when you put efforts where you're like so selfless about it and it works.
Right.
And you see the reward from. It's not about your content doing well, and obviously. The fact that your content does well is super awesome. But I know by knowing you, it's like you're doing this so that the community gets the support from it and that everybody benefits from it.
Right.
So like when the end user that you're supporting in that tagging all that reaps a reward from it, it's like job well done,
Right. And I see it as them doing all the hard work.
Yeah.
Making these amazing dishes. And all I'm doing is saying, look at this. Come look at this. Try this out. It's delicious.
Yeah.
So I feel like my job really isn't that hard. They're doing all the work.
Yeah.
And
But you've also been on the other side, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean,
you
personally
know,
doing some
right?
catering and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I know that piece. But
you've probably started that with the intention, not about, hey, I want to blow up my own fame, but to give back, right? So the intention was for good, right? Just to showcase how amazing people are.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you could probably, you're saying now you're making 50% of your time or it's dedicated to that specifically. So it's like you're giving back and it's rewarding, right? Yeah. So it's a win-win.
Like I say, when I say I feel like so lucky that what I do is incredible.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling. It's super easy. I get to eat amazing food.
Yeah.
I get to hear all these great stories. It's amazing.
Nah, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So guys, like, obviously with a lot of the stuff that's going around with, potentially tariffs and things like that. And again, not to get too political about it, but like how do you personally, or even when you're work doing, like you're doing decisions for your business, how do you make sure that it's either Canadian made or that it's something local, or how does that look like for you in the decision making on a daily basis, whether it's for the business or it's on a personal level?
For sure. I mean,
yeah, like for the brewing business, I'd say it's pretty tough to be, hyper regional in every decision, right?
Yeah.
Let's say all of these 473 cans, there's none made in Canada.
Okay.
Zero.
There's a lot of beer drinkers that are going to be pissed.
So like that. The aluminum is
made
in Canada.
Right? Yeah.
And in Canada, I believe we have 355 mils, so the smaller cans, but all of the bigger cans,
473
and I'm saying there's zero made in Canada. Like there's not many that I know of.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Either from China or from the U.S.
Okay.
But the raw material is mostly sourced from Canada. So
right.
So there's specific aspects of, are we gonna just stop buying aluminum cans just because they're like you can't really base that decision entirely off of that.
Yeah.
I think one of the big pieces that anybody that's looking to support Canadian and support local is just being conscious of, at the end of the day, the dollar that I'm spending here, where is it actually ending up?
Right.
Because these like small local companies, at the end of the day, it's like when you're supporting these large companies that are, regardless of where they're at, you don't know where that money's actually going.
Yeah.
But, this is creating local employment. This is paying, my staff. And, at the end of the day, we want to be able to pay everybody as fairly as possible and treat everybody and hire more. So the more local that we are supporting in every business, you just got to kind of think about where the dollar's going.
Yeah.
And if that dollar is exiting the country, well, then it's not being reinvested into, growth locally. And
I think a lot of even when it comes to supporting the entry level employee or giving that opportunity to the local students or stuff like that in a local business, I think people need to understand too is like a lot of these local companies, like even you yourself having your ownership, but also who you're involved with, they're all local owners of pretty big companies, but like every dollar that you put in, I don't know all of their personal spending habits, but like for the most part, they're spending that money again in our local area, which continues to grow our local economy, right? And I think when you bring it on a larger scale and you try to focus on, maybe start with making some decisions that are helping local businesses, and I'm going to kind of shameless plug with us, which are a local business. Home Hardware is we're a cooperative, we're not a franchise, but all of the dealers are owners, and while we're obviously going to look at our portfolio of products and look at, okay, what are we going to potentially get tariffs on, or what's are people's behaviors going to change because they're products from specific countries. Like we're all going to understand that, but at the end of the day, it's like the inventory is here already, the decisions are made, but the employees are Canadian, or the employees live in Canada. The employees are from the community. We invest in local sports. We invest in local initiatives. We're all people that, are spending our money in local restaurants and stuff like that. And I think that's what you got to look at as like a first decision of where you can maybe start changing those habits, right?
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%.
And I think you probably have seen it the most, I guess. Maybe talk about how people can maybe I think Moncton especially are often they're the chain restaurant spenders and not the local restaurant spenders.
Right. Oh no, for sure. I mean, that's not me, but I know.
Yeah.
So for me, if I go out to eat anywhere, it's not going to be a chain. I Fusion, it's nothing against, like you said, the people that are there. They're all people that work and they live here.
Yeah.
Which I choose to put my dollars toward, like a family-run business. Over, and it's tough. Sometimes most of the chain restaurants could be cheaper.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
buying groceries and stuff when I do catering events. I do my best to get local. Like Doma Foods is a great one.
Yeah,
I
I remember seeing you there a lot.
Most of the food that he has there is either from New Brunswick.
Yeah,
or if not New Brunswick, it's Canada.
Yeah.
So like you're pretty safe going in there, and if it's not there, then it's like Sobeys. I'm like, because it's from Nova Scotia, it's Atlantic Canada, and then last resort is Costco.
Yeah.
But even Costco, like yes, it's an American company, but they also a lot of the products they sell are from local. People from here, from even New Brunswick that have their products there.
So that's, it's very tricky. Like, you know, you can support a restaurant that's everyth's, but if you look at all the ingredients that they're buying,
they're from,
your avocado toast is not grown in Squidoo. It's like, you know, you have to be conscious of that. So
could that be the tagline of this podcast?
Yeah. Avocado toast, not sold in Squidoo.
Not grown in Squidoo.
But it's true, and that's the hard part to turn people's brains around, is that we shouldn't be eating kiwis in January.
I just had a conversation about
the same thing. Like we don't get strawberries right now.
Yeah.
We should be eating turnips.
Yeah.
And apples are great. Apples, we have a little orchard that can kind of put the apples to sleep.
Yeah.
And they're that, like, if you buy anything from Compliments, if it has Compliments on it, they're actually from Billable Orchard, which is cool.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But those are great, but it's hard. I know.
Yeah. It's, you know, the level of where people choose to, you know, draw the line is pretty tough. Like, you can try your best to be as hyper local as possible. If you don't know the person that grew the ingredient or you know, harvested the wood to process it in a mill to transform it into a chair or a couch and made it himself, then it's very high likely that it's a combination of you know, products from different areas, and then if you can support, you know, the economy where at least it's creating employment and, you know, the money is staying, that's, to me, is a great way to support local.
Kind of like segueing into something that, you know, I've noticed over the years, and I think both of you, like, you're as a business owner, probably looking at this, investigating it, and Jason, you being someone that's hosting events or you know, creating pop-ups and trying to get people to get out of the house and find of what they consider kind of that third space, which is kind of a social area for people to you know, meet up and hang out and stuff like that. Like, have you seen it become, like, you know, after COVID and stuff like that, have you seen it become more difficult to have that third space, or to go to a spot? Like, I think we were just talking earlier about, like, you know, you have diehard people that are there, you know, 4 to 7 every day and hang out. Like,
maybe not every day, but no, like,
they're having non-alcoholics.
No, it's definitely, I think COVID threw a curveball to everybody on that aspect. I think it's starting.
It was for good. I think it was a good curve to support local, which was good.
Yeah.
But no, like right now, I think, like, for us at Flying Boats, like, that's one of the big things of, like, the people that do support us on a kind of regular basis. It's not about, you know, coming in and getting intoxicated and going and doing, you know, a bad habit. It's more about being part of this little family. You know, you have a core of people that go there, and they don't work together. They don't necessarily hang out other than there, but it's kind of like a go there, you know, and have, you know, 1 or 2 kind of beers and just socialize. And it's weird, like we have this large, like a collection of tables that's kind of in the middle. And, you know, it'd be easy to just separate them and put extra seating, right? You know. But we have them all together right in the middle, and you could fit, what, 20 people in there? And
it's by design.
And that's where it's always seated. Like, not a lot of people kind of go hide. Like, it's weird. It just kind of gives you that little homey feeling. Everybody, regardless of, like, you know, blue collar, you know, all greased up, you know, shirt and tie, doesn't really matter. They're all sitting there chatting, and it's kind of like, it's impressive to see. And it, you know, for us, we're not trying to always, you know, get, you know, new live music to pull in a new crowd every time. We enjoy that it's kind of like little hidden spot in a sense where, and we also do have quite a few events. You know,
you guys have a great space for people to rent.
We have about 2,000 square feet in our brewery, which we offer. We rent out. Ends up usually being free of charge for the vast majority of groups, and there's not a lot of event space that's free in town. So we've hosted, you know, full-blown weddings to, you know, 40th birthday parties to staff parties and that kind of becomes a very, you know, neat space. You're inside of the brewery, you're sitting, you know, alongside the tanks and the beer, and, you know, we have comedy shows with the Hubcap Comedy, and we have like, you know, and occasionally we'll do our own, you know, live entertainment there, but it's not kind of a regular thing. It's more, we use it mostly for private events, which is really neat, and it gets new people through the door. And, you know, the vast majority of times somebody tries something and ends up liking one of our products, and you know,
and then it's their usual.
Well, it doesn't need to be their usual, but it's, you know, at the end of the day, like, we have such great, you know, New Brunswick craft beer, and I think in general, like, you know, the craft beer industry is not geared towards overconsumption, or it's more of like, you know, that concept of enjoying a fine bottle of wine, right?
Right.
You savor it, you enjoy it, you try different things, and there's such a great, you know, gamut of products locally that are, you know, I highly support to go try them all, and, you know, get away from that, you know, mainstream North American lager that everybody's kind of used to, that you buy your 2-4, like, you know, try something different and, you know, explore. And I still think there's room for growth in that industry where, you know, people can learn to like something different, right? And there's definitely some really good beer.
I think it's funny too, because we're like, you know, we're just talking about people picking, you know, franchise restaurants or chain restaurants over the local stuff. I find like we also kind of have the same mentality when it comes to the beer. It's like we always kind of steer to the one North American company, and we forget that there's all these local products that at this point there's so many of them and there's so many choices, and it can be overwhelming. But sometimes it's just like, just pick 3 or 4, put it in your fridge, savor them, like have 1 or 2 on a Friday, and then 1 on your Sunday afternoon or whatever, or Saturday afternoon, and you might find a style that you like. And also it probably will steer you away from drinking 24 of them.
Right? Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
No, it's the craft beer industry is such a neat little space, and it is sometimes, you know, very hard to manage, you know, innovation in that sense. Because there is a culture of, you know, drinkers that they're always, you know, I want something new. What's new? What's on a business side of things, you know, it's great to launch a new product, but you got no clue how it's actually going to perform till you know, you've gone through that cycle, that honeymoon phase. It's new, everybody's buying it, and then all of a sudden it slows down. You're like, okay, where am I sitting with this? Is this going to become a regular? Are we going to just kind of rotate this one out? And so,
it's like, I don't know if you want to talk about the process of like working with NB Liquor. It's not, you can't just say, okay, put this can in now. It's challenge.
Yeah, they're
it's
not
hard.
easy, eh?
Well, it's not that, I don't think they mean to make it hard. It's just there's a process, like there is anything. If there is anything, and you can't just make a new beer with a cactus beer. And you're gonna put cactus beer, put that in the liquor store now. No, and they gotta sell it at the tap room. And like Tire Shack does a great job of making crazy beers that are good. Some of them are good, some of them are not. I don't know. I like them all, but but you gotta pick and choose which ones you want to
and put in the liquor store.
And it's hard to have, you know, that's where your bar, your tap room. You know, all of these breweries have a what's called a BAS license. So it's a brewer's agency store. So you can go there and shop out of there. And buy, you don't have to just drink it there. You can actually walk away with a 12-pack if you want. And those stores per se, those licenses are great because there's the don't touch, don't tax kind of policy. So we what's not sold by the government, all we have to do is, you know, remit the can deposits in,
okay.
For the off-site consumption.
Okay.
So you walk
Right.
away with a can,
Right.
there is a kind of a tax breaker. It supports the company a little better that way. But it also allows us to try
different beers.
Different beers without, because getting that beer
experimental.
into all of the NB liquor stores is like
Right.
Jason said, a lot of a harder process. So
Right.
regardless if you have 10 different beers, you can't all have them there, right? It's
Is it like when you do it with NB Liquor, is it on consignment? Like, do they buy the beer off of you, or do you put it in the shelf and then like it's your inventory and it's sold? Like, how does that work?
No, it's they would buy it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
at
there's a
least
whole
it's off the hook,
process of
right?
application. They have a call, you apply.
Okay.
You know for which period it's for.
Okay.
And then they, within an application, let's say they have 300 applicants, they'll narrow it down to how many they're looking to fill in.
Okay.
And then they'll either give you a one-time, temporary listing or a general listing, depending on what you applied for.
Okay.
But yeah, general listings would give you the whole like year-round
you'd be good
capacity,
for-
and you're
yeah.
good.
Okay.
But you have to hit certain thresholds of velocity and sales, and
Okay.
it's a lot more complicated than people think.
Yeah.
You can start up a craft brewery today, but doesn't mean
might
you're going to
not.
have.
Yeah.
6 months.
It might take a while to get 1 or 2 products on the shelves.
Okay.
Let
And
alone
even at that being like they're on the shelf all the time.
well,
right?
it is a very mature market in New Brunswick, where
Right.
I believe we have the highest microbreweries per capita in the country.
No
So, if every
9.5 is the
what's that?
number. 9.5.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah, with 9.5 breweries per whatever.
100,000 or whatever it is. Yeah,
That's crazy.
or 100. Yeah, I'm not sure
I think it's
exactly.
100. I remember the number being.
I
Yeah,
think per capita.
It's a very interesting. Like if every microbrewery has 12 different products, well, imagine going to the liquor store,
right.
and then the New Brunswick section would be the whole
Massive.
store, right? So it's
yeah.
well, you have to kind of pick and choose, and NB Liquors, there's a lot of people that talk negatively of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're also really good to work with on many aspects. So it's kind of that you have to work through the system and understand it, and manage your business accordingly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, how many beers does Flying Boat have there all the time in the
We have
liquor
9.
store? 9.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that considered like a pretty high number for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Flying Boats is actually going to be celebrating 10 years in March 5th.
Wow, 10 years.
10
That's
years
awesome.
now. So
It must be, well, apart from like Pump House, it must be like in terms of microbrewery,
locally would be
Locally?
one of the older ones. Yeah,
yeah.
like in Fredericton, there's quite a few.
Good ones probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it would. Flying Boats would be one of the older ones in the province.
Yeah.
And the founder Mark, he was a
Mark's cool. I
great
know Mark.
great brewer.
Yeah.
And based his entire creation off of making very high quality beer,
Yeah.
and he was very meticulous about specific things. And the staff that he hired, Eric and Robbie and Dale and the crew, Tristan, these guys have been, especially Eric and Robbie have been there going on 8 years. They were employee number 1 and 2 and have been there,
Wow.
Ever
built the
since.
brewery in Dieppe. Like, he started in his garage,
Right.
founded the company, started in his garage, started, just
Yeah.
making kegs, and then
Yeah.
decided, hey, let's buy a
big,
building in Dieppe and make it a big brewery. And all of a sudden,
Here we are.
Eric was hired right away. They built the brewery from, literally painted the walls and designed the whole thing. And
At the same spot that it is
Yeah.
now, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that's going to go on, close to 8 years at that location, but 10
location.
years since the very first kind of brew in Mark's garage. So it's pretty interesting. And that having 9 general listings at NB Liquor, took 10 years, right?
Yeah,
It's a long process to get to that, but
Yeah.
and that's in a single serve format. So you
Right. Yeah, you're not in a
larger
box or
pack
anything, right?
sizes or anything. So it's it's
Nice.
definitely interesting, and having people like Jason come in and promote, craft breweries
yeah.
is
Yeah.
extremely helpful.
I haven't done them. I used to do a lot of like beer tours too. Like
I remember that.
40 people on a bus, and we
Yeah.
just go to 4 breweries. And
Yeah.
I used to love hearing people go to like the Flying Boats or Cabo Gay going, "Oh my God, I've never been here before." I'm like, yes.
Well, I don't know if it influenced it or not, but I see a lot of people, like whether it's on my Instagram or on Facebook and stuff like that, doing the bike tours. Like
Yep.
they'll do
Yeah.
all of that's gotten really popular. So I figure after doing like 3 or 4, you'd be like kind of wobbling around on your bike there.
I've seen people on the bus tour.
Yeah.
Not very good. I can't imagine on a bike.
Yeah.
Well, Patrice from Oak Creek actually organizes one every
Yeah,
summer,
yeah.
and they did stop in at the brewery, and I can't imagine drinking 5 or 6. It's going to be a long day, but
Yeah.
hey,
You have one double IPA there, and you're like, I'm staying at this brewery.
yeah.
So I guess one thing that I'm really curious about it's kind of the basis around why we started this podcast for many reasons, but one of them is we're like, when I was younger, I never really found someone that was kind of like my beacon of like a guiding light or kind of like a mentor, and I thought that in when you're at a stage like almost finishing high school or stuff like that, sometimes you're at that crossroad of like, what the hell do I do, right? And it's like, and it was the same when at your age. I think a lot of people, probably 70 or 80% of people went to university, and probably about 90 to 100% of those people was because everybody else was doing it, right? Yeah. And I think that that's created over the years, and we're starting to see it more and more, is like, okay, well, there's more people coming into Canada, there's more people moving into the big cities and all that, and because of 70 to 80% of people going into universities were like, don't have trades because nobody went to college, right, and nobody did the specialized stuff. And when I look back at my personal journey, I'm not sure, like, I look at my degree and I'm like, there's pros to going to the university, but there's like, in my experience, the upside is not as much there as what I could have maybe done by either taking a year off or maybe doing something like, I did a degree in political science. It kind of helps with the marketing side of things, but like I kind of wasted 4 years, right? It's like I played soccer. It was great. That was the fun part of that. But, we're hoping that with experiences of people that come onto the show, that they explain a little bit about their path and how they got to where they're at. They're kind of like, here's how. It'll inspire them to like maybe see in the one person that's here being like, oh shit, like that person's kind of similar, like has a similar trajectory as me or whatnot. So all that to say, kind of short story long, I'm curious to know, like, what do you think is a good piece of advice, or what's something that you learned along the way of getting into either the industry or carving that path into the career that you've now formed for yourself? Like, what takeaways do you have that like someone might be able to pick up on and be like, oh shit?
Want me to start, Jason? Yeah, it's like, personally, I think doesn't really matter what you decide to choose for a career path.
Yeah.
I think that one of the biggest things to ingrain in your kind of core values is just becoming a lifelong learner.
Right.
Being open to understanding and learning.
Yeah.
When you're in business per se, you're not just, owning the business.
Right.
Like, I wear 20 different hats, right? I do accounting, I do marketing, I do our graphic design, I do some of our production planning. I'm on the can line, literally putting labels on and loading, like, a bit of everything. Some days I do deliveries. So yes, did I learn a lot at university? Yeah, I did. I'm sometimes thinking very deeply of like that, accounting 101, course, like, what was that supposed to mean? And now I'm kind of putting one and one together. Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, so there is, but you have to be open to learning, because if you kind of narrow your, I went to school and I'm done school and this is all I know.
Right.
Well, life is not a linear path, right? In my opinion, it's either you grow or you decelerate growth. And your mind kind of works in that same way. If you keep on feeding it new information, and you kind of are open to that growth mindset. And like you said, having mentors and reaching out, like, you know, anybody that you call, any business owner, and you ask them questions, like I'd say the vast majority of them will gladly, you know, answer the phone and speak to you and help you, right? It's, you know, this process for me to kind of get into the non-alc space, you know, that's what I did for 2 years. I literally went on LinkedIn and, you know, reached out to all these other, you know, CEOs, founders, owners of companies. Hey, can I ask you some questions? Yeah, jumped on a video conference, spoke for 30 minutes, an hour. You know, wonderful, thank you. I, you know, spent a bit of my personal money and, you know, traveled, went to a few areas in the US, met with specific people, and, you know, got to kind of build this this dream of mine to be able to, you know, lead the path locally on wicked non-alcoholic beer. And I, you know, that's kind of the, was it, but at the end of the day, to come back to your original question, you just, piece of advice, you know, you just, if your idea, you know, is something that you're extremely passionate about, just go for it. And all the knowledge is out there. You just gotta, you know, put the time. It's not gonna happen overnight. You know, I started this, you know, 3.5 years ago, and we packaged our first non-alcoholic beer about 4 months ago. So,
and I remember, like, we were discussing, like, you know, maybe a year ago about, hey, like, you know, hop on the podcast, love to talk about the non-alcoholic beer and all that. And it was like, okay, let's, we're getting there, whatever. And it's like,
time,
but
right?
to your point.
And you just got to kind of, you know, a lot of people were so lucky to have, you know, all this technology with AI. The answers are instant, but like, you know, putting your dream and your goals and your career, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time, and you know, there is a lot of knowledge and a lot of people that are, you know, willing to help and share their expertise, and you just got to, you know, be confident enough to reach out, and sometimes that's all it takes. And, you know, read as much as you can, and you know, watch podcasts and videos, and, you know,
just like this one.
No, true. What about you, Jason? What you know, what takeaways, like, and you know, I think that some people may start watching your stuff and be like, how can I get viral videos like Jason has got, right? Because that's a lot of people's dreams these days, right?
Which wasn't mine. I guess the first thing is, don't give a shit about what anybody thinks. And it's very hard to do. It's very hard. I'm gonna make a video, I'm gonna look like an idiot. And I like it. And I think it's funny. I think it's fun. And I'm going to do it. And that's what I kind of did it in the pandemic with TikTok. I kind of made a joke with my daughter saying, she said, oh, you can't get 100 followers. I said, okay, well, let me see. And I started making videos, 100, then 1,000, and I keep growing and growing. And anyway, so I kind of find your niche, doing things that I like doing, promoting local, having fun, doing things that are goofy or whatever. And I mean, for me, I worked in a corporate job for 20 some years, kind of going up the corporate ladder. Look at me go. Thinking that's life. That's what you need to do, is you got to get into business, and you got to get your job, get your pension, and all this stuff, which you should do. It is very helpful. After 20 years, I'm very happy that I did that. But also, there's things that you like. So I got to a point where I was kind of not really liking what I was doing at work, but I did find a kind of a passion for food. And someone that I work with took that to a whole new level, which was Dennis Prescott. If you don't know, you know who he is. He used to work with me, and we used to talk about music all the time. And all of a sudden, I remember him leaving the corporate job. He's like, I'm going to be a musician, because I knew he played. He's like, I'm taking off. And at the time, I'm going, oh yeah, I'm going to climb the ladder. You do your little music thing. I'll see you back in a year or so. Then I don't hear from Dennis for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years. Then all of a sudden, I see an article of like the top 10 most influential food people in Canada. And it's Dennis. I'm like, what the hell? Where did you come from, buddy? What did you do? What? And then, so I'm like, I'm looking at him going, this guy left like this corporate job to go do something he loved doing. It turned into something amazing. And he's made a whole life. He's got a Netflix series now. why can't I do that?
Right.
What is stopping me from doing something? I'm never going to get to his level, but I can still.
Not with that attitude.
That's right. But it gave me that push to go, you know what? Like, do what you love. Do food. Because I oddly, we never talked about food, but we kind of both went that way because I enjoyed going to restaurants. I started cooking myself too. And I kind of fell down that path. I'm like, let's do that.
Yeah.
And see how that goes. And now for the past, I think 8 years, that's all I've been doing.
Yeah.
And I wake up every morning and I'm like, I can't believe this is what I do every day. Like, I'm like, oh, today I'm going to go eat some food and make some silly videos and get paid.
Yeah, that's true.
It's insane. And it's there. You just need to follow what it is you like to do. And again, the big thing is you can't care what other people think. It is
100%.
It'll kill you right away.
Yeah.
It'll kill you right away.
Yeah. And don't read the comments.
Delete
Unless it's about the lobster rolls, then you need to figure out if everybody agrees with you.
No, you got to respond to every single comment.
Yeah.
I do respond to, like, I do though, but I don't know where that line, where am I supposed to stop at?
Yeah.
Sometimes I have 700 comments. I'm like, am I supposed to go to all these comments?
like.
Yeah, that's kind of made it a little bit easier. You can just like, okay, I can kind of just give an emoji to it. So that's good enough. So
yeah.
But I agree. Like, I think, and I've, my experience in the career world is still very, like, it's still in its infancy stage, being out of university and probably just over 10 years of actually working. I think it's still early enough, but oftentimes I see people that, and I understand life gets in the way. I understand that, like, you've got other commitments and all that, but there's something that didn't light up in them, or there's a direction that they didn't take, that they've accepted, like, a subpar life for the rest of their life. And if there's someone that can hear that before they ever get there, and I don't think it's ever too late, is I think you don't need to choose that. Like, it's not the only choice. And I think like every sacrifice of, if you, have a goal of running a marathon, you got to train for it. Or if you want to, become a doctor, you got to put all the hours in it. I think any course correction requires a sacrifice. And I think a lot of people, they should just, like, realize, and on the other point that you made is, like, don't care that much about what other people think about your decision to course correct. Mm-hmm. It's like, are you happy with that? Do you want to do that? Do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and for sure. So for me, what I thought what worked out well for me is I did the corporate job as I kind of started doing my side hustle or my side gig,
which was good.
So I got it to a point where I'm like, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore. I'm going to not do that no more because it's no fun, but I'm going to do this because I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work though.
I don't think people understand, like, behind the scenes how much, like, sweat equity goes into creating the videos and doing the any marketing related content, right? So
yeah, and it's going out to find sponsors, because, like, for when I do all the restaurant stuff, I don't want them to give me free food. I don't want them. I go out and get sponsors that will pay me to go out, and I make sure that I add enough that it'll pay for the food at the restaurant.
Right.
So that, like, I'm not taking away from them. I'm also
that's a good
making sure.
Cool.
So, and that's the hustle too. I got to go out all the time and try to find these people going, pay me.
Yeah.
Now I'm to the point where it's kind of been nice where people are going out, hey, would you want to do this for us? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So again, but it's a lot of work, but I'm happy where it's.
Do you guys find, and I think a lot of people, I personally, and I've said it on a few other episodes, like, I've never had that entrepreneurial spirit, because, like, I understand that, like, being an entrepreneur, everybody sees, like, just the tip of the iceberg, and they think, like, the business, the passion, all that, but then there's, like, all the bottom that's, like, the accounting, the canning, the deliveries, the hiring the staff, the firing the staff, the finances, the ups and downs, like, all of that part there, and they get so overwhelmed, and they're like, no, screw that. Like, I know where I'm good at. I just want to do something specialized. My values have always been, like, I want to do it for a local company, and I want to be part of the success and the decision making of the company. Do you, as both of you entrepreneurs, do you find difficulty some days in the rest of it, or how do you keep that like how do you stay passionate or happy or driven with knowing that there's still a lot of stuff that maybe the part you really like is the canning, but I'm sure that it's not the part that you like the most, right?
Probably not the part I bring the most value in. You know, it's
maybe you're a shitty canner,
but no, it's like any advice to anybody wanting to become an entrepreneur. If your only objective and end goal or just cause is money, then you're probably not doing it for the right reasons, right? And you're not going to be fulfilled if that's the only reason why you're doing it, because you're going to probably hate the process of just trying to chase the money.
Right.
So having, you know, a career path within the entrepreneurial world that, you know, is very much something that you're deeply passionate about is, I would say, a requirement for being a successful entrepreneur, because if you're not, you're going to drain yourself. You're going to everything, all of the others that tasks that you're saying is going to just suck the life out of you. And, you know, if that's what you're just chasing the money, it's not the proper way to do it. But yes, it is, you know, being a small business, you know, we have 10 people on payroll, you know, you know, we're probably not at the place where I can just decide, okay, I'm hiring a full-time accountant, hiring a full-time marketing director, hiring a, you know, full-time sales guy. Like, you can't just from overnight do it. So you're going to have to wear many hats for, you know, an amount of time before you can get to the level of having dedicated people that take on those tasks. But on the flip side, it allows everybody to kind of all be intertwined, right? We have to have those communication valves wide open for everybody at all times, which is, you know, kind of brings that little family. You know, we get to work every morning and we sit down and we start chatting about, you know, maybe have a 10-15 minute debrief on anything, and then
and then get right into
and then we open up, you know, this is the schedule, we kind of look at everything, you know, break out the day, the week, whatever it is that we're discussing, and, you know, everybody kind of changes whichever hat that they have to wear for that day.
Okay, cool.
Like, we have 3 people that can brew, but we only have 1 brew house. That means one person's brewing.
Okay.
The other 2 aren't, you know, they're capable of brewing. Are they brewing that day? Does that mean that they're doing something else, right? So it's that piece is fun, and, you know, with time you get to, you know, you probably have seen some of our social media with, like, Keith, you know, was originally hired just as a taproom or a bartender, became taproom manager, became social media. So he manages kind of multiple hats as well. And, you know, kind of like you just organically started making funny videos, and, you know, his personal, you know, TikTok blew up.
I remember that.
I call him TikTok famous there, but he kind of applies, you know, I kind of let him do his thing with Flying Boats, social media wise. And, you know, we're definitely not TikTok famous, but, or Facebook.
Yeah, you're probably wondering, like, hey, I hired you because I wanted you to be TikTok famous.
But, you know, a lot of people, you know, we're bombarded with all these advertisements at all times. And it's like, you know, sometimes feels good to just, you know, see something that kind of makes you laugh, and not forcing a product down someone's throat. And then with time, I think, you know, these videos that he's making is definitely, you know, getting some traction, and
100%.
Which is fun.
You know, I've always been a firm believer in this, and it has always been a difficult sell when you're talking to people that are looking at KPIs that are like revenue driven and all that. I'm like, you want to spend a lot more time building your brand than you do about building your sales. And I think that the differentiation is that people will recognize something that they've built a relationship with. They'll eventually buy from the things that they build the best relationship with. And I'm a firm believer in building this first before even focusing on the sales part, because the sales part, if you don't focus that much on the brand itself, you're always going to be in an uphill battle of, like, trying to be the best price or trying to innovate the product. Like, I think if you would not focus so much on brand building and you'd be like, every week we need a new beer, your production costs would go through the roof and your business would crumble.
And a lot of people don't understand, like, to make a beer, well, we have a small batch system and a big batch system. It takes my employee the same amount of time to brew 100 liters
Yeah.
than to brew 1,900 liters.
Okay.
So it's like,
Yeah. Which one should I?
Same time, right? Yeah. So yeah, they're like, oh, pump out a bunch of small batch stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, great, but like, my brewers are now going to have to be making 100 liters at a time in an 8-hour shift. You know,
right.
It's not very.
And that's not a lot of
my cost of creating those 4 kegs is extreme.
Yeah.
But again, these people are like artists, right? You have to let them.
That's
usually
true.
we allow
There's
them
a
to
balance, right?
develop these recipes, be creative. They're it's an art in itself, and they're try stuff, and if we'll try it at the bar, people like it, perfect. Then we can see if there's a market for it on the bigger system. But it's just it's a balance of both.
How do you find the kind of like the entrepreneurial side of, obviously you've said fuck you to the corporate world and kind of transition in, but do you often how do you get through those moments where, are the sponsorships the difficult parts? Are the business development part? What's driving you to get past those obstacles?
It's a daily. It's just you just push through. So you just gotta get through that one moment, that one thing.
Yeah.
And there's been so much good right now that there's not a lot of everything just is good. Like I said, the fingers crossed. I mean, things have been great, but for sure you're wearing some people call me. Can you or your team come and do blah, blah, blah? I'm like, my team? It's just me, man. I'll get calls for social media. I get calls for doing catering or pop-ups or whatever. And so it's just a whole bunch. And I do all my own accounting and all that stuff, obviously. And so it's a lot, but I enjoy it. I love it. I tried working in a more liberal environment for a while, but I'm still reporting to someone. I'm still not me. I'm not able to do what I want to do every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to go golfing.
Right.
And I can make that decision. It might hurt me down the road, but I went golfing anyway.
Yeah.
But I like having the ability to make my decision. And if I fuck up, I fuck up. It's me. It's not anybody else to blame but me. And I enjoy it.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you put in the hours that need to be put in.
Right.
Yeah. There's no entrepreneur that I believe is just putting in clocking in at 8:30. It doesn't really work that way.
No, it doesn't.
There's a few nights last week, my wife was kind of commenting, I'm sitting there working, it's 9 o'clock at night, I'm just doing stuff. And in the past, if I would have been so upset if I'm sitting there at 9 o'clock at night on my computer having to do work.
Right.
So now I'm like, this is fun. I'm doing some stuff, and I'm like, it's not a job anymore. Yeah. It is, but it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're putting in the work, I've in my, working for large companies, you're a salaried employee. You're not an hourly employee. So the expectation is to get the job done, right?
Yeah.
And depending on what kind of standards you put on yourself within those roles, well, you sometimes just work and I've always, been a little intense in everything I do. And, when I'm working, I'm giving it my all, right? And that's kind of, I was a good fit per se to move to entrepreneurship because I'm going to give it my all and might as well do it for myself.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it's not for everybody as well, right? Like you said, you chose to, work with the Elmwood Group, which is, phenomenal local company that, has been around for a long time, and you're putting your spin into it. You're in the mix with it, right? So, we need people like that don't necessarily want to wear all the hats.
Yeah, we can't all be business owners here.
No, but having really good employees, and I value an employee that brings the more value these people can bring to the table, the better, right? And it's not just about no, here's your 4 job tasks, stick to no. We want people that come in and bring more, and not necessarily work more, but feel valued and actually
100%.
Bring their spin to the company. And if the company succeeds and they're involved in it, it brings that kind of feeling of mutual joy.
And I think both of you are good spokespeople for the doing it for the right reasons, because you touched on it very quickly, is if someone's in it just to make money, I don't think they're really in the right space. or they're not doing it for the right reasons. It's like, it's easier to work for someone that has like a vision mapped out in their head of what success looks like, that is independent from money, and is like what you're doing, like trying to give back to the community and you know, make sure that, you know, a local business is celebrated for all the things that they do behind the scenes that people don't even realize, just to get a plate on their table, right? Like, and things like that. And what you're doing, where you're like, hey, like, I for health reasons can drink beer, but I don't want people to feel as though like having a health issue or even just making a choice takes them away from a social space, right? And those are, it's so easier, like, and in my position, and you were talking about, it's like, I don't want to be the vision maker, but I would love to work for guys like you, because I'm like, I know that what you're doing is something I want to believe in as well, right? So that's really powerful, and good on you guys to be those types of people. Yeah. You probably didn't know it, but but kudos to you guys. And listen, guys, really appreciated to kind of get a better understanding of what you do best, and you know, I would encourage anyone watching the show to go try out a non-alcoholic beer.
Fly craft beer.
Yeah. Even if it's your one and only and you'll never go back, I think that it's worth a try, because I think that they will not be your only one.
No, we have 4 options at the moment too. I just brought the IPA, but
there you go. And for Jason, I mean, follow him on what's your social handles?
Hub City Foodies.
Hub City Foodies, right? Yeah. So go check out, go see if you agree with his best lobster roll.
I get my weekly laughs watching his that voice filter you put on.
Like, so anytime that like like sometimes we're kind of watching videos or whatnot, it's like every time that voice comes on, we're like, oh, you're watching a Jason video, eh? Like, you just recognize it.
I get that. If I meet somebody that recognizes me, that's the first thing they say. I want to hear your real voice.
Does he really talk like that? Some
people think that's how. Anyway, no. This is my voice.
Oh man, do you have any plans? Like, do you have any other plans for like a tasting? Like trying to find out the best of?
I am working with someone that I think is going to be a very cool option this summer.
Cool.
That's a summer thing that you do.
Okay.
That's very New Brunswick.
Okay.
And I'm hoping it works out, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to have to start an exercise program, because it's going to
be... You got lots of time.
But it's going to be good. I'm very excited for that one.
Good. Awesome.
If ever you want to do, I saw your what's the best mocktail in Moncton?
Yeah.
Let's try to get some non-alc beer in there.
There you go.
I agree.
There's not a ton of options, but you know, I can guide you to a few of my favorites.
Yeah, slip a little 20 after the show, being like, by the way, make sure I win.
I've been meaning to go in and buy a few, because I've been buying just stuff at the grocery store. But I can.
Definitely worth a try. I would say, like, I've always been like traditionally an IPA, like navigated towards an IPA, and it tastes like an IPA, which is to me a 10 out of 10. So
beautiful.
Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot. That's a wrap.
Beautiful.
Awesome.